Welcome everyone. This is another one of our Friday afternoon webinars, Poets Day, for those who are working. Today's webinar is part 2 of our energetic studies of famous buildings, and today what we're going to do is look at Washington D.C, and it will be based around the Capitol building, not so much the White House. The Capitol building in Washington D.C. has some very interesting energetics about it. Whoops, let's get the right photo up. And I'll just share screen. And show you, this is the building we're talking about. Everyone knows it, it's quite a famous building. A very interesting building because it's got a nice dome roof on it. And that dome roof is the main component of that building which guides the energetics, interesting energetics of what's going on there. So I'll just get rid of that photo and okay, I'll replace it with this. Okay, this is a little bit tricky to see. This is looking down on top of the White House. And north is directly up that way. Okay. The dome roof on the White House, what it does is it creates a radiance in the building which has a negative charge. And negative charge, if you've been listening to me for a while and reading what I've been saying for donkey's ears, a negative charge frequency or field, that resonance is what's required to balance the harmful positive charge component of any radiation field. So the dome roof on the White House, what it's actually doing is creating a radiance throughout that entire building. Because of the shape, sorry, not so much the shape, because of the size of the dome, it's creating quite a strong radiance, which if you're in that building, you would feel quite calm and relaxed. And considering what it's all about, which is the different parties or aspects of American politics which goes on within the building, and not knocking politicians, but I'm not knocking American politicians each, but we've seen some interesting characters of not the greatest vibration either in American politics and over the years and right now. I'm not naming any names or being prejudiced against anyone or for anyone whatsoever. And those types of people would create quite a toxic energy in any type of building. And in a minute, we'll go have a quick look at the White House, which doesn't have this energetics, doesn't have a dome on the roof, and it's just toxic. But these blue lines here are actually ley lines, and the dome and its shape and energetics actually creates these ley lines. This building doesn't sit on a grid or a crossing of what I call the 25-kilometre ley line grid, which runs all over the world. And as I said, a couple of the last webinar, as an example, Stonehenge was, I believe, deliberately put over the top of a crossing of this ley line grid, of the ley line grid called the 25-kilometre grid. What we're seeing here with the White House is not 25-kilometre grid. It's actually a aspect of an energetic dynamic of the shape of the roof of the White House. Okay, more photos. There's a closer up photo picture of the White House looking down, and you can just make out there's a dome here. It might actually go to, oh, there we go. We've already got it on Google Earth, sitting there waiting, ready for you. I spend some of my days all day long on Google Earth doing property readings, especially with what's been going on lately, where a lot of people have had a lot of time to spend at home because they're forced to be at home due to whatever you want to call it. People get bored. What do they turn to these days? They turn to their computers as a source of entertainment, and they get curious and they see what we offer, which is the free Google Earth readings. That's why I spend all day long roaming the world and looking into people's backyards with their permission. You doing energy surveys of their houses using Google Earth, which are free. So the ley line runs all the way down here and stops about there. It doesn't continue any further. Well, I mentioned the White House before because of its not so nice energetics. I'm just trying to find the White House. I'm not an American, so forgive me for not knowing exactly where it is in relation to the Capitol building. Okay. There's the White House. This here isn't really a dome. And the energetics of the building being the White House, if you want to complain about 5G being a dangerous, harmful energy, well, the White House's energy is probably worse than that. It comes from the emotional pain body charge of all the different politicians in there and where they are with their, whether they're happy or sad or what their emotion is regarding what work they're doing there. And it's also a big target for everyone around, anyone from anywhere who has a beef against American politics or politicians. Like, and I'm not picking on the Americans either, it happens everywhere. We spoke about that with the Parliament House in Australia a couple of weeks ago. But it's just what happens. You know, people who are empowered to make decisions don't always make decisions that suit everyone else. And a lot of people these days, especially when they're under pressure, like a lot of people are around the world at the moment with whatever's going on, they get angry and upset, and their emotional pain body charge is lethal and dangerous and is actually directed as a negative energy towards a building like this. And it just doesn't have to be a prominent building like this. Just take your average council, not knocking councils, but every time I drive past, or when you were allowed to, our local, I'll say it, Frankston Council building, and they've had a very, very interesting history of good and bad. Every time I drive past that building, I go, yeah, you can feel the energy there. Poor people in there, because the negative psychic impression directed at them is really quite toxic and quite not so nice. So that's what I wanted to talk about this week as far as another famous building around the world that's got, and here with the Capitol building, it's a beautiful, really nice, healthy, radiant energy because of the dome. Just like our stellar dome, in a sense. I'm not saying you can make comparisons, but the stellar dome also creates the same sort of radiance that we have in a building like this. Interesting too, another aspect with those two ley lines that cross, for people who meditate, when you're properly meditating in the samadhi state, and I'll talk about this because I have got a lot of customers around the world who are quite very, very spiritually orientated because they're tuned into they're also tuned into energy. And when you meditate and you are in that samadhi state, you do actually create, I'll come back to my ugly head. Okay, you do actually create energy lines coming out that way and an energy line going up that way, one going down. And if you're a bit of a religious buff, and if you like looking at old paintings of religious deities, you'll often see the halo around the head with the two lines coming up and sometimes down. And some people, you think, that depicts a cross, or it depicts a person. No, it's actually a representation of the energetics of a person in a very spiritual, meditative state. That's what goes on. Okay, let's move on. There's a few things I wanted to talk about today because we can't talk forever about the one thing. I get bored with it, and so do other people too. Oh, sorry. My little helper on the side here has just chimed in. Twin Towers in New York. Let's quickly just go there because there is an interesting aspect of that, and I can't talk about that for forever and a day. So I'll talk about that quickly now. It was on my list, however, I forgot. I'll just share the screen again. Okay, World Trade Center, Twin Towers. It's a bit tricky to see because the day this was taken, and with the height of the buildings, there's all these shadows. But this is a World Trade Center site, and whatever's being built there now after what happened those many years ago, which was an interesting event. We won't go into that. The Twin Towers actually sit on a ley line crossing which runs east-west, and north-south. And even though there's been horrendous death that occurred there from what happened with 9/11, you would, and especially if you know me and what I talk about, you would think that the bioplasmic radiation charge there from that horrific event would be through the roof. Actually, it's not. The energetics of the ley line have actually dissolved the bioplasmic radiation imprints of all those thousands of deaths that occurred there. That's what ley lines can do, that they do have that power to do that. However, today, if you look at things energetically around the world, we don't have any Mercury retrograde, yay, and we don't have any big solar events going on like we did a couple of weeks ago. That ley line energy is quite strong. If it was while we had Mercury in retrograde, and if it was like 2 weeks ago with the big solar event, that ley line energy wouldn't be there. It would be absolutely wiped out by the geoelectric charge in the ground caused by the solar event or the retrograde. Geoelectric fields in the Earth's crust cause a radiation to come up out of the ground, and that radiation, when it gets to a building, it fully engulfs the building, and that's the issue with 5G in LED streetlights or on street poles. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is we've got some really, really interesting photos came in from a customer this afternoon, only about an hour ago, which were taken in St Kilda in Melbourne. And as we all know, or if you don't know, we're in lockdown here, and we can't go out, only if we want to maybe go for a walk. And this woman, Maria, went for a walk and saw this little photo here up on a street lamp light. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And if I move this photo around, if you look carefully here, this I think is a repeater. And in other states, these repeaters are usually on this part here of the street light, generally. Sometimes they're on the poles. In Canberra, I think we saw them on the poles, and in Adelaide, about a year ago, we saw them on the arm, whatever you want to call that. This here is magnetron, and these here are the 5G antennas. And that's the repeater down there. There's another photo, don't go away. This photo here is the same pole showing St Kilda Road street sign. And there's a notice on the pole saying mobile antennas temporarily out of service. What does it say? Oh, hang on. There's something below which was really, really fine print. I need my glasses to see it. Something, oh yeah, contact TPG. Very interesting. Okay. TPG, didn't see that. So that's equipment. 5G has got something to do with TPG, which we, in Australia, if you don't know or if you're viewing from overseas, they're one of our major internet providers. And the reason I'm showing these photos too, this is where I get a little bit controversial, is that Dan, so everyone knows who our Premier Dan is, there's rumour has it that one day last week he got caught at Tullamarine Airport without my face mask on. Where's my face mask actually? Greeting 27 plane loads of Chinese, and on that plane, what was being unloaded, what unloaded was a lot of cargo, which some people assume to be 5G equipment. But that's only rumour. We don't know. Well, I've seen no photos. I've heard about it on a YouTube video called Crow House, and that was only a few days ago. The interesting thing about that photo I just showed you then being a very new antenna on a streetlight in Melbourne, and I can tell you now, Melbourne doesn't have any 5G streetlight activity whatsoever. Or I've been looking for months and I haven't seen anything until I saw that photo today. Other capital cities like Canberra, Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide and Perth have got suburbs which are fully decked out with 5G streetlights, which is a concern. Now, I've seen photos of a train station in Perth also that was just literally covered in 5G panels, so that the train station has become a 5G hub, as they call it. But at the moment, we're in curfew, which means we can't go out from 8 o'clock at night until 5 in the morning unless you're a cat. And the rumour has it, or the conspiracy theory, you would say, behind this, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I try to be a bit more grounded and sensible. But wouldn't you really say, okay, great, bring in a curfew, bring in all this equipment, it needs access via the roadways, clear access via the roadways to put the amount of equipment up that they need to for 5G streetlights to be operating successfully, which means that photo I just showed you then is not just the only photo you're going to see. You're going to, only street pole you're going to see with antennas on it. Virtually every second, or virtually every street pole in that area, in theory, will be decked out with the antennas, and soon they'll turn it on. The energetics of St Kilda Road and St Kilda isn't that great because most of the buildings are commercial buildings. And as I know, and I've been saying for a while, if you're worried about 5G coming, well, and if you work in a commercial building, then don't worry about 5G, because the radiation in any industrial or commercial building from the emotional pain body charge of all the people working in them, and generally they're pretty disgruntled because we all tend to be treated by like sluggers and battery hens these days, and it's not a slur, but that's almost truth. That causes a strong emotional pain body charge in buildings, and that's what brings their energetics down. And the emotional pain body charge from all the people working in those commercial and industrial buildings is enough to cause a geoelectric effect in the Earth's crust, because the emotional pain body charge is a positive charge. So it's like people being turned into walking dangerous EMF fields by their emotional state, by not being able to keep their equanimity. And so that has an effect with causing a charge to come up out of the ground, and it fully engulfs the buildings no matter how many levels they are. But when they put the 5G into St Kilda in that area, it's just going to make it a hell of a lot worse. I could tell that street light before was not turned on, and how I tell naturally is by using my energy reading skills. And that's outside, and it's sort of not really close to any buildings, and energetically around that street light pole things are, oh, okay, not bad at all. You wouldn't complain too much about them. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is what happened 2 weeks ago, and I'll share my screen again, was we had a big solar event. And here's a screenshot from my favourite website called spaceweb.com. This is what I look at every morning at 7 o'clock in the morning before I look at anything else. One, I can tell the energetics of what's going on, or someone else over there saying, well, don't you look at me, yes, I look at you, but then I look at this. But if you look here, let's get serious. This here is a solar wind speed, 726.9 kilometers a second. That's through the roof. This occurred over a period of about 2 or 3 days. It was, this shot was taken on Tuesday, the 4th of August. The geoelectric effect on the Earth's crust was severe. And I wonder how many nervous electrical engineers there were around the world watching their equipment, seeing the extra charge coming out of the ground, hoping to hell that the electrical grids that they were looking after stay stable, because this type of solar wind can cause blackouts, major blackouts. So 726 kilometers a second, it was causing a charge to come out of the ground, which I measured to be roughly 4 meters out of the ground, which makes it, you could say, 3 to 4 times worse than what 5G in streetlights will be doing. Or there's always that correlation. It's great with having 5G in streetlights to be able to use as a benchmark. So energetically, what was going on the planet during those few days when we had these consistently high solar wind speeds was 2 or 3 times worse than being in 5G, and that was worldwide, not just Australia-wide. If I can just get this photo down, but I can't, because if you look over to the left here, these are the 2 sunspots which were directly facing the Earth, but they were the culprits. They were the solar flares that were directing that charge of solar wind towards the Earth, which totally destroyed the geomagnetic field around the planet, or weakened it, thus allowing that charge to become a geoelectric field on the Earth's crust. They sound like big names, but they're not really big names. One thing I've always been saying for many years in building biology, a lot of the terminology is being pulled out of people's backsides. I see it all the time, and there's not a lot of research gone into, well, where's the science behind it, where's the engineering? It's really engineering to explain the phenomenon and to get the correct engineering come scientific terminology. So that was a really big thing. And if around Tuesday, the 4th of August, around that time, if you were sensitive and if you were thinking, what the hell is going on? Why do I feel so bad? Or why did something go wrong? Or why did my computer crash, because it could cause that? Or why did my iPhone start acting up? Or why did the neighbor down the road just suddenly start arcing up and got really angry at anything and everyone? Well, you can tell one reason would be due to stress of what's going on at the moment. But add in a 726.9 kilometer solar wind, and it's enough to send anyone nuts, in a sense, because that amount of geopathic stress coming out of the ground, or Earth radiation, which actually causes geopathic stress. So it's not really electromagnetic radiation stress from equipment. That much geopathic stress encountered in the body would be having an effect on endocrine organs, which has an effect on hormones and neurotransmitters, and those people who are emotionally sensitive or carry viruses. And I'm not talking about the C virus. I'm talking about Epstein-Barr viruses, other viruses that have been going around for years, which can absolutely debilitating to people. And if you talk Epstein-Barr, and if you talk chronic fatigue syndrome, there's a huge correlation between the two of them, especially for people who don't manage it. And so those people with the viruses become very, very energetically sensitive and emotionally sensitive, and things like this would be enough to make them just curl their toes, so to speak. Okay, that's some interesting things. Okay, the last thing I'll talk about today, and we won't go on for too long, because being 5 o'clock, I know a few people are, maybe they already started at 10 o'clock in the morning. We don't know if everyone's at home. So there's a lot more booze being drunk these days with what's going on. Not around here. Is last Saturday we started our 20th anniversary 20% off sale in conjunction with the relaunch of our website. We've changed our platform. And so if there's anyone out there who's got a log into the old website. And if you want to log into the new website, what I say to you is register as a new user with your username and password you used to use, and everything will be fine. Everything's been migrated except for the passwords, which you can't because they're encrypted. And of course, Stellar Dome 20th anniversary limited edition gold Stellar Dome is now available on the website, and they've been selling like hotcakes. People are loving them. There's not a real big difference between the gold and the yellow Stellar Dome, and I'd like to do some extended testing between the two of them, but I've got a problem is that I can't drive more than 5 kilometres from home without a permit. And that's okay to get to work, where I can't test energetics there because it's already beautifully energised. So I need to find a dirty, grotty building to go into to do the comparisons. And I don't want to risk a $2,000 fine for being in the wrong place. I'm not saying I'm weak or feeble or submissive. I just don't want to get into trouble. I'm 56 years old. I don't need stuff like that happening to me. Okay. I didn't bother to look for questions, and I'll look now. Oh, no questions. Not a problem. Okay, I'll wrap that one up early so you can move on and enjoy your Friday nights or Fridays wherever you are. There will be another webinar in 2 weeks' time, and I'll pick another couple of buildings somewhere else around the world which will have some nice energetics, because we like to talk about nice things here because there's so many crappy things going on. And recognition of the nice energetics, I think, is something that we should be doing more of around the world. There's too much focus on the negative. I'll probably look at some buildings in Europe and the UK in the next 2 weeks. So see you in 2 weeks' time. So stay safe, and yep, all the best. Thank you. See you.